Part 1. The biting wind whipped at Father Michael's cassock as he stepped from the car, the skeletal branches of the surrounding trees clawing at the twilight sky. A chill, deeper than the autumn air, settled over him, a premonition of the darkness that clung to this isolated town like a shroud. He had been sent to investigate, to offer solace, to exorcise perhaps? But the silence of Oakhaven was more unsettling than any storm. Only the mournful cry of ghouls broke the stillness, a counterpoint to the rhythmic thump of his own heart. The church was older than he initially thought, its stone weathered by centuries of harsh winds and relentless rain. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of dust and decaying wood, the only light filtering through stained glass windows depicting scenes of a forgotten faith. He found the book on the altar, worn leather, its pages brittle with age. A single image, etched onto a loose leaf, caught his eye, a pentagram, crudely drawn, but at its center a symbol he'd never encountered. It pulsed with a faint inner light, an unsettling warmth that seemed to radiate even in the cold of the church. His meeting with the townsfolk was no more comforting. Their faces were etched with fear, their words hesitant and filled with hushed tones. Sarah's name was spoken like a curse, her erratic behavior described in fearful whispers. They spoke of shadows, of whispers in the dead of night, of objects moving without a hand to guide them. Each word added another layer to the mystery, deepening the unsettling unease that coiled within him. As he approached Sarah's cottage, the wind intensified, howling around the dilapidated structure. The single flickering light within cast dancing shadows on the walls. He knocked, the sound swallowed by the wind, and a moment later she appeared in the doorway. Her eyes, dark and hollow, held a depth of despair that was chilling to witness. He saw a flicker of something else, something that felt ancient and malevolent. It was a gaze that spoke not of a troubled soul, but of something that had taken hold, something far older and far more powerful than he initially believed. He felt the icy grip of dread tighten around his heart. The investigation had only just begun. Father Michael found himself drawn into Sarah's world, a world of shadows and whispers, where the line between reality and illusion blurred. Her room was a chaotic blend of the mundane and the occult. Textbooks lay scattered alongside tarot cards and strange, unsettling symbols. The air crackled with an almost palpable energy, a sense of unease that settled deep in his bones. He tried to engage her in conversation, to uncover the root of her troubles, but her responses were fragmented, unsettling, sometimes nonsensical. He learned of her obsession with the occult, a fascination that had spiraled out of control, consuming her life. He learned of late-night rituals, of whispered incantations under the cold light of the moon, of a growing darkness that seemed to seep into her very being. But there was something else, something beyond her obsession. In her eyes, he saw not just madness, but something ancient and malevolent, a glint of something inhuman that sent shivers down his spine. He tried a simple prayer, a familiar ritual for cleansing and protection. The effect was minimal. The air grew colder, a tangible chill that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. The symbols on her walls seemed to shift and writhe before his eyes, transforming into grotesque figures that twisted and writhed, melting into the shadows. He realized with growing horror that he wasn't dealing with the simple case of mental distress. This was something far older, far more powerful. This was a possession, and not just any possession, but one of immense and terrifying power. His own past experiences, his own struggle with Lucifer, returned with a chilling immediacy. This time, however, the darkness felt different, more profound, more insidious. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this was a battle he might not survive. The fight had truly begun. The following days were a blur of frantic prayer, intense study, and desperate attempts to understand the nature of the evil that possessed Sarah. Father Michael immersed himself in ancient texts, poring over forgotten rituals and forgotten languages, searching for a weakness, a chink in the armor of whatever dark entity held Sarah captive. He found himself haunted by his past, the memory of his own possession returning in vivid, nightmarish flashbacks. The familiar symbols he'd seen in Sarah's room, the pentagram, the unsettling glyph at its heart, echoed the markings that had branded his own soul years ago. A chilling reminder of his own brush with Lucifer. The townsfolk, initially hesitant, began to open up, sharing fragmented stories passed down through generations, tales of dark rituals and ancient pacts. They spoke of a place known only as the Whispering Cairns, a desolate stretch of land on the edge of town where generations of outcasts and heretics had performed their unholy rites. The whispers suggested a connection to Sarah, a connection to something deeply rooted in the town's history, something that Father Michael feared was far more ancient and powerful than he had ever imagined. Finally, the man said, the demonic influence on Sarah intensified. Her behavior grew more erratic, more violent, her body twisted and contorted, her voice shifting between a child's whimper and a guttural growl that echoed with an inhuman power. He tried exorcism rituals, but the entity resisted with a force that stunned him. A power that seemed to mock his faith. A power that echoed the terrifying strength of Lucifer himself. She echoed. Fine, hold out. Father Michael was running out of time, out of hope, and perhaps out of faith. He was facing not only a battle against a powerful demon, but also a battle against his own past. A battle to maintain his belief in a God who seemed to have abandoned him. The final confrontation felt inevitable, a clash of wills that would determine not only Sarah's fate, but his own. Everyone looked at each other, fighting to preserve the truth. Sarah said quietly. Driven by a desperate hope, Father Michael decided to confront the source of the evil directly. Ignoring the warnings of the townsfolk, he ventured to the Whispering Cairns under the cover of his storm-racked night. The wind howled like a banshee, the rain lashing against his face as he navigated the treacherous terrain. The cairns themselves were a sight of stark desolation, a circle of weathered stones, slick with rain, shrouded in an unnatural darkness. A palpable sense of dread permeated the air, a suffocating weight that pressed down upon him, threatening to crush him. There, amidst the stones, he discovered a hidden altar, stained with what looked suspiciously like dried blood. Strange symbols, similar to those in Sarah's room and the ancient grimoire, adorned the altar stones. As he touched one of the stones, a surge of icy energy coursed through him, a chilling reminder of his past possession. He felt the presence of the entity, a malevolent force that seemed to emanate from the very earth itself, a presence far older and more powerful than any he had ever encountered. Halsey's words faded into a silence, a ping of concern, anger, and fear. Halsey, he realized then that this wasn't merely a possession, it was an ancient pact, a dark ritual that bound the entity to the land, its power fueled by generations of unholy rites. Sarah wasn't merely possessed, she was a conduit, a focal point for a malevolent energy that had been dormant for centuries. The true battle wouldn't be waged against the entity itself, but against the ancient pact, against the dark history of the cairns. Crack! Sarah, it's Marilyn. The weight of this realization nearly broke him. The burden of facing an evil so deeply rooted, so inextricably linked to the very land itself, was almost unbearable. But he knew deep down that he had to try, not just for Sarah, but for the souls trapped within the dark heart of Oakhaven, and for the redemption of his own tormented soul. He had one last chance, one last desperate prayer.